Our talk today is titled Mission Possible, and what better song to illustrate that than the golden oldie High Hopes? Anyone knows an ant can't move a rubber tree plant, but he's got high hopes. He's got high hopes. He's got high apple pie in the sky hopes. So anytime you're getting low, instead of letting go, just remember that ant. Oops, there goes another rubber tree plant. That is such a story, isn't it? That tells the entire story right there. What can you believe you can do? Now, this whole month was devoted to the topic transcendent purpose. And this is the idea of going beyond our perceived limitations and living with a deep awareness, with a determination, and with intention. And I want to thank from the CSO Global Themes coordinators, Sunshine Michelle and Chris Alexander, for some of the information in this talk this morning. This transcendent purpose represents a radical vision of just surpassing our limits, something that's been holding us back. Just imagine infinite possibilities and achieving that which seems unattainable. I don't know about you, but there's some things in my life that just seem like, I don't know if I'll ever get there. So these transcendent aspirations, along with purposeful living, that creates this trajectory towards things that we didn't think we could do on both our personal and on the collective level. So this transcendent purpose involves embracing a turbocharged passion for life and bringing forth a new reality. It means reaching inward to express outwardly what the Spirit is calling for us to do. And it involves connecting to a higher vision that transforms this imagination that we've got into something tangible. And so we have to transcend our ordinary goals, and this idea that we can do more, that we can move that rubber tree plant, this guides us towards a profound truth and a new paradigm. And this aligns with the Centers for Spiritual Living's vision of creating a world that works for everyone. I don't know if you've reviewed that vision lately, but it is really incredible. And today we're going to focus on the role that hope plays in this idea of transcendent purpose. Okay, I have to admit, before I could even begin to think about this subject, I had to come to terms with the word hope. Now, you may ask, what could be so complicated about this four-letter word? Well, like so many things that come into our mind, as a young practitioner in training, I was taught that we didn't hope, we knew. And I can still picture this in my mind. Our senior minister at the time, Betty Stone, who, by the way, was a gem, she instructed me in no uncertain terms not to use the word hope, because hope implies some doubt about the outcome, and she equated this with wishful thinking. So, no hoping. We treat knowing the truth and move our feet. There was no place for hope, the word hope. At least that's what I heard. And of course, that went into my mind. And so coming to this, I've gotten a little more comfortable with hope, realizing that it is a comforting word, and realizing that if you say to somebody, I know you're going to feel better, sometimes that comes across as arrogant. So I've learned to back off, and now I am willing to say, I hope you feel better, knowing that that is what's happening. So anyhow, I know where she got the idea that there was no place for hope. And what I didn't realize is there's no place for hope when you're giving a treatment, because that's when you know. So Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes, the textbook that we use, he wrote this. He said, many people correctly begin their treatment in this manner. I know the principle of intelligence within me will direct me. And then they complete it with a thought, well, I certainly hope it does. And he writes, this is entirely forgetting any definite statement and is simply wondering if possibly some good will come along. He said, this is not a correct treatment and it's not the scientific use of that principle. And then he goes on to write, hope is good. It's better than despair, but it is a subtle illusion and is an unconscious compromise and has no part in an effective mental treatment. So, as religious scientists, we are told and taught to know something to be the truth, to declare it. So he reinforces the idea when a practitioner treats anyone, he does not just hope that the patient will get well. He does not ask that the patient may be healed. He does not simply desire that he may be healed. He convinces his own mind that the patient is perfect. And this is a definite piece of mental effort, work. And he brings out in his own consciousness, in his own self-completive, in his own conscious mind, an understanding that the patient is healed and perfect. And it goes back to the idea, if in treatment you say, I want this, you'll always be wanting. And nobody wants to live in the want phase. And again, Ernest Holmes says we should be careful to distinguish daydreaming and wistful wishing from really dynamic and creative treatment. When we treat, we do not wish, we know. We do not dream, we state. We do not hope, we accept. We do not pray, we announce. We do not expect something is going to happen. We believe that it has already happened. And so I was thinking about this and I was realizing a quote that I heard one time. It says, some people drink at the fountain of knowledge and others just gargle. And I thought, oh my gosh, I was gargling. I was accepting that and then spitting it back out without really coming into the larger awareness that at that point, when Ernest Holmes was talking about hope, he was talking about using the word hope in treatment. And really the knowing is what that does for us. So I was comforted as I read from Scott Aubrey. He said Ernest Holmes dismissed hope as a subtle illusion, a compromise with doubt. And he urges us to bypass hope and move straight to faith, the conviction that Spirit is present and creating through us right now. And Scott says hope is not merely in the realm of maybe. It can be a lifeline we hold on to when certainty feels far away. It whispers possibility when despair threatens to take over our consciousness. Hope reminds us that Spirit is always in the midst of our affairs. Hope is not passive. It supports us in finding the energy and vision to act, to imagine, to discover new paths. And even science affirms this. Researchers have found that hope is vital to well-being. So if faith is the summit and love is the air we breathe at the top, then hope is the trail that carries us upward. Hope then isn't always an illusion. It is a sacred trust woven into the very fabric of our lives. And so I had to think about this because, like I said, I had this not great relationship with the word hope. So I went back to the textbook and I thought, okay, what have I missed? Because there's always something to learn. And then I saw Ernest Holmes wrote, if it were not for the divine hope in us, our experiences would be more than the human mind could digest. And so we need that hope. And again, he says, merely to abstain from wrong thinking is not enough. There must be active right thinking. So we must become actively constructive and happy in our thinking, not merely passively so. New and wholesome ideas of life, vitality, and hope must be accepted and incorporated into our mental life. So there is something about hope. And again, he says we have to separate the difference between the desire and the deep thought that reacts to it. We can desire a thing so badly that it almost paralyzes us and still believe we're not going to have it. Therefore, our hope and desire must pass into the certainty of acceptance, and acceptance into an atmosphere of embodiment, a complete realization that this is the way it is. And so I became hopeful. So there is this growing body of research that suggests to cultivate positive change, hope is a vital step. And so what is this thing we call hope? Hope is sometimes equated with burying your head in the sand and ignoring reality, or sitting idly by and waiting for things to get better. But you can see what Ernest Holmes says. He says, no, no, we have to be active about it. In reality, that hope is a nuanced cognitive process that involves goal setting, agency, changing your thinking. Where have you heard that? Thelma Bryant has said, hope isn't a denial of what is, but a belief that the current situation is not all that it can be. You can recognize something's wrong, but also that's not the end of the story. One of my favorite authors is Sue Patton Thole, which actually I read one of her books when I was just coming into metaphysics, and it really changed how I felt about things. She writes this in The Mindful Woman. She says, hope is an inside job. In order to keep hope alive, it's extremely important to monitor what we allow ourselves to see, hear, feel, especially in regard to the media. This is so true, isn't it? She continues, because your subconscious mind accepts as real both your personal experiences, but also those you imagine vividly. One of the best ways to take care of yourself is to mindfully and wisely choose what you watch and read. Images imprint deeply. And so hope is that state of mind characterized by the desire and expectation for a positive outcome, even in the face of adversity, even when it looks like that is totally impossible. And unlike that wishful thinking, which I had equated it with, that's passive, hope is active. It's a motivational force that requires belief in the possibility of a better future. A possibilitarian, as Dennis Merritt Jones called it. Be a possibilitarian. Believe in a better future, and then there's an actionable plan to pursue it. It's not just going, oh gosh, I wish that's going to happen, but it probably won't. So that's where the hope is not valuable. Now, there is a theory of hope by psychologist C.R. Schneider, and he defines hope as a cognitive skill with three main elements. First, goals. There's something that you're hoping for. And then next, the pathway thinking, like the ability to find multiple pathways to reach a goal and then to reroute when obstacles disappear. I don't know if you use Google Maps, but I use it all the time. And when I'm going some direction and I decide not to go the direction Google Maps asked me to go, you know what? It just finds me a new direction. Wow, what if it would be like if life were like that? If I were going in one direction, going toward a goal, and then kind of got off course and then was just rerouted back to that goal. That's pathways. And then agency thinking. That is the belief in one's own capability to pursue goals and the motivation to take action. So now we know that hopefulness is not just blind optimism. Rather, it's the capacity to perceive the world as pregnant with possibilities. This is from Leslie Thiel in her book, Indra's Net. Pregnant with possibilities. To be hopefully engaged in a relationship of interdependence means to embrace our roles as midwives of the future. We are midwives of our future. So we are at this moment helping that to be born. I was thinking about this optimist pessimist thing. And an optimist thinks that this is the best possible world. And a pessimist fears that this is true. So we have to have that hope. And hope is more than optimism. It's a core principle that empowers our spiritual journey because we are rooted in our connection to the divine. And then hope becomes that dynamic force that aligns our thoughts with universal abundance possibility. Remember, pregnant with possibility. So, how do we access this? Well, through spiritual practices, we do spiritual mind treatment. Again, knowing, affirming, accepting. We affirm our ability to co create our reality. And it's active, it's an active engagement. So, if we look at optimism, which, yes, we are optimistics, the general expectation that positive outcomes will occur. And hope involves both the desire for that positive outcome and the belief that you can take action to make it happen. That is what makes the difference. It's what allows you to keep going. And that's why our affirmation today is so important. I know that anything is possible. Let's say that again. I know that anything is possible. And that's how we birth the possibility. That's how we birth the new world of future. Anything is possible. So researchers in this study of in the field of positive psychology have indicated that hope is the single most important feeling state. This is from The Power and Science of Hope by Margaret Nabbig. Individuals who have significant levels of hope are more physically healthy and less susceptible to disease. They perform better academically and athletically. In fact, elite athletes score exceptionally high on psychological measures of hope, indicating that raw talent, grit, or even optimism without hope is insufficient when pursuing difficult goals. Research also indicates hope is positively correlated with self-esteem and healthier relationships. Hope increases the sense of meaning in life and identification and realization of goals and dreams, even in the midst of adversity. Individuals with high hopes, there's that word again, high hopes, set loftier goals and are more likely to realize them. That's because hope is a better predictor of success than intelligence or innate ability alone. Hope. I'm becoming more and more hopeful. But remember, we need agency and pathway. Now, agency is that belief that we can create and shape our reality. And we do that through the power of thought and intention. Hope is knowing that we are co creators with the divine and that we can manifest our desires by aligning our thoughts with universal principles. And this belief extends to every aspect of life. So we can achieve our goals, and that hope is the motivational drive that empowers us to take charge, to persist in the face of challenges. And that means we have to build self-confidence and reinforce that idea that we do have the power to influence our outcomes. It is when we sink into that victim mentality, like, "Oh, I can't do anything, this is never going to change, what can I do?" that we lose hope. And then we don't take the steps and lose motivation. But when we believe that we can make a difference, that we can affect change, then we're more likely to stay motivated and resilient. Oh, and that resilience is very important, thereby enhancing our overall sense of hope. So agency is that knowing that we can make a change, that we can do something, that we can have an effect. But we need pathways. Now, pathways are the ways that we go, that we recognize and use those infinite possibilities that are available to us through our connection with that divine mind. Now, the hope encourages us to trust in the unlimited creative potential of the universe. to provide multiple routes. Remember that Google Map is going to recalculate and find a way forward for you with no judgment, by the way. So developing pathways requires flexibility, creativity, and a willingness to explore new approaches. I often say that I'm not lost, I'm just exploring. So by leaning into our awareness of the limitless potentiality, we can maintain hope even when faced with setbacks, knowing that there's multiple ways to go. And I like this idea. Blessed are the flexible, or they shall not be bent out of shape. Absolutely. So by integrating these elements, we cultivate resilience and adaptability. And that's crucial for maintaining hope amidst life up and down. So developing hope begins with the recognition of our inherent connection to a limitless source of good. We already talked about this. We are one with the divine. We co-create our reality with the divine. And in Science of Mind, we have practices to help develop hope. Main one I talked about earlier, spiritual mind treatment. Engaging in a daily spiritual mind treatment, remind yourself that the desired outcomes have already been realized in the mind of the divine. So in the divine mind, we know and accept. And then we simply, with a joyful expectation, with a joyful anticipation, and maybe we just call that hope, that has been realized, and it simply is going to manifest in perfect right time, in the divine right way. We don't have to know how that's done. We just know that it is done. And so this consistent practice nurtures that, especially when you are treating for something very specific and then you see it manifest and you go, yes. Remember one of the first times that I did a spiritual mind treatment, I was newly out of college, had my first job, and I needed a car. So my office mate introduced me to Science of Mind through treatment, saying, this is how you get a car. And so I did my treatment, and at the end, I remembered to include, oh, by the way, I'll know it when I see it. I manifested that car, and I knew it when I saw it. I said, this is my car. That total acceptance and knowing. So that was my first introduction to treatment. And once you have some success like that, you're going to build on it. And then there's affirmations. We use affirmations daily. Anything is possible, right? So affirmations. So one of the affirmations might be, I have perfect relationships in my life. Or an affirmation might be, there's a place for me. I always find the perfect parking place and life is good. And those things happen. And you'll see this as you build on that and strengthen your resolve to simply continue to build. Visualization, this is something we use. We visualize our dreams being achieved in vivid detail. You see it happening. You know what that's going to look like. You're moving into a new place. You can imagine what it feels like. You can imagine where the furniture goes. You can imagine, how it all comes together. You can imagine beautiful, wonderful neighbors. You visualize this and your senses take it over. And this mental rehearsal boosts your confidence and motivation because you already know. And then we also have, besides visualization, we have visioning, which we're going to do on Tuesday as part of our meditation practice. Visioning is allowing that vision to come through spirit rather than you saying, oh, I'm going to make a move. I want it to look like this. You say, okay, spirit, what's the next thing you have in store for me? And then you visualize that, allow that to come to you. And throughout all of this, we practice mindfulness. And mindfulness is to stay present and connected with your inner guidance. To say, okay, even if Google Maps is taking me this direction, Spirit is telling me, by the way, you need to avoid that intersection. And maybe you don't know why. Doesn't make any difference why. You practice mindfulness and stay present and connected to your inner guidance. And over time, again, that meditation and mindful awareness quiets the mind, allowing you to tune in and to hear and be connected and to even hear better that that voice within. And this practice fosters clarity and calm, and you can maintain that hopeful perspective even in challenging situations. I want to come to one more, which is self compassion. Gosh, I have to practice this a lot. Self compassion. Treating yourself with kindness and understanding, even if I was not drinking from the fountain of life and only gargling about the word hope, I can practice self compassion and say, well, now I know better. And recognizing that all of that's part of the human experience and affirm my worthiness that did get some of it right and ability to learn from every experience, which again nurtures that hopeful and resilient mindset. So we have spiritual mind treatment, we have affirmation, we have visualization, we have visioning, we have mindfulness, we have self-compassion. All of these things support us. And so this week, let us embrace this hope as a guiding light on this spiritual journey. And we integrate these practices into our life. We cultivate resilience, foster that inner strength. And through this hope, we not only align our intentions with divine abundance, but nurture creativity, explore new possibilities. Together, as this community, we are dedicated to spiritual growth. We can embody hope as a transformative force. We embrace hope with thoughts, words, actions. We inspire others and create a ripple effect. We hold the vision of a world where hope is not just a concept, but a lived experience where each individual's potential is realized and our collective aspirations are fulfilled. Dr. Chan Hellman said, hope is the belief that the future will be better than today and that we have the power to make it so. Let's take this into our morning meditation. In our morning meditation today is actually written by that wonderful senior practitioner Betty Stone. This was written in February of 1994, shortly before she passed. She was published something called the 7 a.m. Club. And this idea was for her to join together. So she writes, as we awaken each morning, let us join together to set the tone of our day, visualizing for each of us that we're right now winners in the game of life, and that the wonderful power of love and understanding guides and directs us. We meditate together in the oneness of universal truth, knowing that we are complete whole children of God. And so she asked us for that entire month to join and speak in the first person her meditation. So I'm going to read that for you now. So join with me in the first person. Accept these words as your own. I, right now, align myself with my highest good. I realize my potential is unlimited and I'm able to create my wonderful life. I'm willing to change my attitude from one of negativity to a positive attitude, ready to see the best in life, ready to open myself up to a greater good. As I reach for perfection of being, I am blessed by the wonderful God power. This God power propels me forward into a wonderful, productive life, a life that is satisfying and abundant. As I step forward into this wonderful, productive life, I release all thoughts of lack and uncertainty. I replace these thoughts with thoughts of abundance, health, love, and understanding. I know as I step forward with positive thought patterns, all areas of my life improve. My health is great. My relationships at home and at work are perfect. And I know that I am aligned with my highest good. And so, in gratitude for these words that our dear Betty Stone has written and sent to us over the decades, I give thanks for the realization, for the acceptance, for the knowing that all is well, and all will be well, and all is well. And so I simply release these words into the universal law that has already given its affirmation. Yes, anything is possible. Let it be, and so it is.